Alright, this is Chapter 2, Section 2, Part 2. Where we left off was with Native American tribes. Today we're going to talk about the Plains Indians. Across the mighty Mississippi, and you will soon see a landscape of vast grasslands. The grasslands are similar to the savannas of Kenya or the pampas of Argentina, with tall native grasses that stretch across some of the flattest land in America for miles. Then suddenly, you can find yourself standing at the foot of the Rockies, some of the tallest mountains in North America. In the Great Plains, the weather is moodier than a 4-year-old who hasn't had a nap. Winters drop below freezing, and summers can be scorching with average temperatures in the 90s. During the summer, things can dry out pretty quickly, and lightning can set the land ablaze. The next week, thunderstorms can pummel the place, causing devastating floods. In general, the northern plains of the Dakotas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Minnesota are much wetter than the southern plains, which consist of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. This land is a place where you have to be ready for anything to survive, and where food cannot just be plucked off the tree. The Indians who lived here belonged to one of 6 different language groups. Most Plains Indians were bilingual, and sometimes trilingual, which means they spoke multiple languages. Some of the most famous Plains Indians include the Apache, the Comanche, the Lakota, the Crow, the Blackfeet, and of course the Cheyenne. The way people lived here depended on how much rain fell in the area that they lived in. Those tribes with more rain obviously could grow more crops and support larger populations. Those who lived in areas like northern Texas where rain was unpredictable, hunting and gathering was more important to bringing food to the teepee. Animals common to the plains include antelope, rabbits, deer, elk, and of course the bison, or the buffalo for those of us know it that way. The buffalo was by far the most important animal to the people of the plains. Its meat was dried into jerky, its clothes and its teepee were made from its hide. Leaving nothing to go to waste, its bones were even used for tools and weapons. That is before the Spanish reintroduced the horse to the America. Reintroduced, you say? Before the end of the last ice age, some 10,000 years ago, a mini version of the horse once roamed these lands. No one knows exactly what happened to them, climate change or even overhunting, but extinct they became. In the 1500s, the Spanish brought their bigger Asian cousins with them to help conquer the Inca and the Aztecs. Some of the horses broke free and made their way to the Great Plains. The days of the Mustangs had begun. The horse became essential to the Plains Indians, who became some of the best riders in the world. A Sioux rider could mount a horse as easily as climbing out of bed. They also could fire a bow and arrow while the horse was running full speed. Before the horse, Plains Indians hunted buffalo by chasing them over cliffs. Now they could outrun them and other enemies too. The horse became the most valuable asset a plainsman could own. Ask most Americans what a typical Indian house looks like, and you're likely to get a lot of teepee responses. The teepee is the original camping gear of the Americas. It was lightweight, and with 3 poles and a sturdy animal skin, could be put up in a matter of hours. For people who depended on the migration of animals, being able to move along with the herds of bison meant life or death. One of the most important deities of the Lakota was White Buffalo Woman, who gave the people the knowledge of the buffalo pipe. The smoking of this pipe was important to sealing peace and trade treaties with other nations. The Lakota believed that life could not exist without the White Buffalo Woman, and ceremonial dances are held to honor her. Yet again, geography has shaped culture in another unique way. In the woodlands, culture women were valued for their role as farmers. They brought in half or more of the food for the village. In the plains, however, farming was less important than hunting or going to war to steal more horses. Women were generally not considered equal to men in this patrilineal society. Women rarely held position of power or authority, and the highest honors were reserved for the best warriors or the elder males who taught the youth how things were done. The indigenous people who lived in the American Southwest and northern Mexico really were a tough bunch. You had to be to thrive in the environment with little rainfall, scarce vegetation, and rattlesnakes. Rainfall is unpredictable and scarce in a desert environment, making agriculture difficult but not completely impossible. To live in the American Southwest, places like Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, and even parts of Colorado, you have to be resourceful as well as tough. Different groups called this harsh desert environment home, such as the Hopi, the Zuni, the Navajo, the Apache, and of course the Pueblo. Each of these groups were very different from one another depending on where they lived. When the Spanish conquistadors crossed the deserts of Mexico and Arizona looking for the legendary cities of gold, they came across a peaceful farming people who lived in the canyons and mesas that were carved by ancient rivers. The Pueblo people are descendants of a mysterious group of people called the Anasazi, or the Ancient Ones, who disappeared from the region hundreds of years before. The Spanish found the people living in cliff dwellings like apartment buildings carved in the caves and walls of cliffs. These cliff dwellings, the word pueblo means village in Spanish, were easily defended because when raiders came, the Pueblos people could just haul up a ladder to escape. The desert environment allowed few plants to grow that bore fruit and nuts. Therefore, large animals like deer and bison were rarely found here. The roles of men and women of the Pueblo were completely different than any other Indian group. Farming was done by collecting rainwater and irrigating fields from rivers and streams. The men cleared the land and planted corn, beans, cotton, and squash. They also added meat through hunting small game like rabbits. The women raised the children, wove the baskets, and made pottery. The women also were responsible for creating jewelry from turquoise, which is a blue-green mineral that can be found in this region. What the Pueblo people could not grow, they traded, such as the pottery and jewelry, with neighboring tribes.